Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun!
Sarah stood at the sink, her hands submerged in soapy water as she scrubbed the last of the lunch dishes. Her son, Jake, lounged in a chair nearby, his lanky frame sprawled out as he scrolled through his phone. "Hey, Mom!" Jake called out, not looking up from his device. "Did you see that new movie trailer I sent you?" Sarah glanced over her shoulder, a sudsy plate in hand. "Not yet, honey. I've been up to my elbows in dishes all afternoon." She paused, her eyes catching on Jake's hands as he swiped at the screen. "Speaking of which, have you ever noticed how long your fingers are?" Jake's brow furrowed as he lifted his gaze from the phone. "Huh? My fingers?" "Yeah, look at them," Sarah insisted, turning off the tap and wiping her hands on a nearby dish towel. She crossed the kitchen and gently took Jake's hand in hers, spreading his fingers out. "They're so elegant. You've got piano player hands, I swear." Jake squirmed a bit, uncomfortable with the sudden scrutiny. "Mom, come on. They're just regular hands." No, Sarah persisted, a mischievous glint in her eye. "These are special hands. You could be a concert pianist with these beauties." She lifted his hand dramatically, as if presenting it to an imaginary audience. "Mom," Jake protested, trying to pull his hand away, but Sarah held on, laughing. "Oh, don't be such a grump," she teased. "I'm just saying, you've got some pretty impressive digits there. Though..." She trailed off, examining his nails more closely. Jake's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Though what?" Sarah clicked her tongue. "Well, they could use a bit of tidying up, couldn't they? When's the last time you gave those nails any attention?" Jake shrugged, finally succeeding in reclaiming his hand. "I don't know. Never? Why would I?" Sarah leaned against the table, crossing her arms. "You know, there's nothing wrong with a little self-care, Jake. Even for guys. Maybe we should get you a manicure." Jake's eyes widened in alarm. "A what? No way, Mom. That's for girls." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? And who decided that? I'll have you know plenty of men get manicures. It's not just about making your nails look pretty, though there's nothing wrong with that either. It's about hygiene and health, too." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I don't know, Mom. It seems kind of weird." Sarah's expression softened. "Look, honey, I'm not trying to pressure you into anything, but sometimes it's good to step out of your comfort zone a little. Try new things. Who knows? You might even enjoy it." Jake looked down at his hands, really examining them for the first time. His nails were a bit ragged, he had to admit, and there was a hangnail on his thumb that had been bothering him for days. "I guess maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world," he conceded reluctantly. Sarah's face lit up. "That's the spirit. Tell you what, why don't we both go? We can make an afternoon of it. Mother-son bonding time." Jake couldn't help but smile at his mom's enthusiasm. All right, but if anyone at school finds out about this, I'm denying everything." Sarah mimed zipping her lips. "Your secret's safe with me, kiddo. Now, let me finish these dishes and we'll head out. There's a great little salon just down the street." As Sarah returned to the sink, Jake found himself studying his hands with newfound interest. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. An hour later, Jake found himself seated in a plush chair at Nailed It, the local nail salon. The air was thick with the scent of acetone and flowery lotions, and pop music played softly in the background. Despite his initial bravado, Jake felt distinctly out of place. Sarah sat in the chair next to him, looking completely at ease as she chatted with her manicurist about the latest neighborhood gossip. Jake, on the other hand, sat stiffly, his hands resting awkwardly on the armrests. A young woman with bright blue hair approached Jake's chair, a warm smile on her face. "First time?" she asked, knowingly. Jake nodded, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. "That obvious, huh?" The manicurist, whose name tag read Zoe, laughed. "Just a bit, but don't worry, we'll take good care of you. I'm Zoe, and I'll be doing your manicure today. What kind of look were you thinking?" Jake blinked, caught off guard. "Look, I don't know. What are my options?" Zoe gestured to a nearby wall covered in a rainbow of nail polish bottles. "Well, we've got every color under the sun if you want to go bold. Or we could do a French manicure for a more classic look. Some guys like to get designs or even nail art." Jake's eyes widened in alarm. "Oh, no, nothing like that. I just want them to look, normal, clean." Zoe nodded understandingly. "How about we start with a basic manicure and a clear coat? It'll make your nails look healthy and well-groomed without being too noticeable." Jake relaxed slightly. "Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks." As Zoe began working on his nails, Jake tried to relax. He watched with fascination as she filed his nails into neat, uniform shapes and gently pushed back his cuticles. The process was far more involved than he'd expected. "So," Zoe said conversationally as she worked, "what made you decide to come in today?" Jake glanced over at his mom, who was now having her nails painted a vibrant red. "My mom, actually. She said I had, piano player hands?" Zoe looked up from her work, examining Jake's hands with a critical eye. "She's not wrong. You've got great hands. Long fingers are perfect for playing instruments. Do you play anything?" Jake shook his head. "Nah, not really. I mean, I took guitar lessons for a while when I was younger, but I wasn't very good." "Maybe you should give it another try," Zoe suggested. "Or piano, like your mom said. You've definitely got the hands for it." As Zoe continued to work, Jake found himself growing more comfortable. The initial awkwardness faded, replaced by a sense of curiosity. He watched intently as Zoe massaged a sweet-smelling lotion into his hands, the tension he hadn't even realized he was carrying melting away under her expert touch. "This actually feels pretty nice," Jake admitted, flexing his fingers as Zoe finished the massage. Zoe grinned. "See? Told you we'd take good care of you. Now, let's get that clear coat on." As she carefully applied the polish, Jake marveled at the transformation. His nails, once ragged and unkempt, now looked smooth and healthy. The clear coat added a subtle shine that caught the light as he moved his hands. "What do you think?" Zoe asked, putting the final touches on his pinky nail. Jake held his hands up, examining them from different angles. "Wow," he said, genuinely impressed. "They look really good, actually. Thanks, Zoe." Zoe beamed. "My pleasure. Make sure you let them dry completely before you touch anything. And here," she handed him a small file. "Take this with you. If you get any snags or rough edges, you can smooth them out at home." As Jake waited for his nails to dry, Sarah finished up her manicure and came to check on him. "Oh, honey, your hands look fantastic. How do you feel?" Jake smiled, surprising himself with his own enthusiasm. "It's actually pretty cool, Mom. I didn't expect to like it this much." Sarah's eyes twinkled. "See? Sometimes it pays to try new things. Who knows? Maybe next time we'll get you a pedicure too. Jake laughed, shaking his head.
Let's not get carried away. One step at a time, okay?
As they left the salon, Jake found himself looking at his hands in a new light. It wasn't just about how they looked, though he had to admit the manicure had made a noticeable difference. It was about how he felt. There was something empowering about taking the time to care for himself in a way he never had before.
Hey, Mom,
Jake said as they walked down the street.
Thanks for suggesting this. It was kind of fun.
Sarah wrapped an arm around her son's shoulders, giving him a squeeze. I'm glad you enjoyed it, sweetie. And who knows, maybe this is just the beginning of your journey into self-care. Jake rolled his eyes good-naturedly.
Yeah, don't push it.
But as they continued their walk home, Jake couldn't help but wonder what other new experiences might be out there, waiting for him to give them a chance. Maybe his mom was right. Maybe stepping out of his comfort zone wasn't such a bad thing after all. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of his alarm blaring. He groaned, fumbling for his phone to silence the incessant noise. As he brought his hand up to rub the sleep from his eyes, he caught sight of his nails. The events of the previous day came flooding back, and he found himself examining his hands with renewed interest. In the harsh light of morning, Jake half expected to feel embarrassed about his manicure. But to his surprise, he still kind of liked it. His nails looked clean and well-groomed, and the clear coat caught the light in a subtle way that was actually pretty cool. As he got ready for school, Jake found himself paying more attention to his appearance than usual. He spent an extra minute combing his hair, making sure it fell just right. He even dug out a barely worn button-up shirt from the back of his closet, thinking it might look nice with his newly groomed hands. Downstairs, Sarah was already in the kitchen, packing Jake's lunch. She looked up as he entered, a smile spreading across her face. Well, look at you. Someone's looking sharp this morning. Jake felt his cheeks warm slightly. It's nothing special, he mumbled, but he couldn't quite hide his pleased expression. Sarah's eyes twinkled knowingly. Huh. And I suppose that shirt just happened to iron itself and jump out of your closet. Jake rolled his eyes, but there was no real annoyance behind it. Okay. Maybe I wanted to look nice today. Is that a crime? Not at all, Sarah said, handing him his lunch bag. In fact, I think it's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to present your best self to the world. As Jake headed out the door, Sarah called after him. Have a great day, honey. And remember, if anyone gives you a hard time about your nails, just tell them you're starting a new trend. Jake laughed, shaking his head as he made his way to the bus stop. He doubted anyone would even notice his nails, but his mom's words stuck with him. Maybe there was something to this whole self-care thing after all. At school, Jake's prediction largely held true. Most of his friends were too preoccupied with their own lives to pay much attention to his hands. But as he sat in English class, absent-mindedly tapping his pen against his desk, he caught Alyssa, the girl who sat next to him, staring at his hands. Jake instinctively curled his fingers, suddenly self-conscious. But Alyssa's next words caught him by surprise. Your nails look really nice, she said, her voice low to avoid drawing the teacher's attention. Did you get a manicure? Jake hesitated for a moment, torn between embarrassment and a strange sense of pride. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, actually. My mom suggested it. It's, my first time. Instead of the teasing he half expected, Alyssa's face lit up. That's so cool! I love that you were willing to try it. Most guys I know would never even consider it. Jake felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words.
Thanks,
he said, a small smile tugging at his lips.
It was actually kind of fun.
And, I don't know, it made me feel good, you know? Alyssa nodded enthusiastically. Totally! That's what self-care is all about. It's not just about looking good, it's about feeling good too. As their conversation continued in whispers, Jake found himself opening up more. He told Alyssa about the Salon experience, about Zoe's suggestion that he might be good at playing an instrument, and even about his mom's piano player hands comment. You know, Alyssa said thoughtfully, there's a piano in the music room that anyone can use during free periods. Maybe you could give it a try sometime? Jake considered this. The idea of trying something new, of potentially discovering a hidden talent, was suddenly appealing.
Yeah,
he said, surprising himself with his own enthusiasm.
Maybe I will.
As the day went on, Jake found himself standing a little taller, speaking a little more confidently. It wasn't just about the manicure anymore. It was about the realization that taking care of himself, trying new things, and stepping out of his comfort zone could open up a whole new world of possibilities. During lunch, his friend Mike noticed the change.
Dude, what's up with you today? You seem different.
Jake hesitated for a moment, then decided to go for it. He held out his hands.
I got a manicure yesterday.
Mike's eyebrows shot up. For real? That's unexpected. Jake shrugged, trying to play it cool, even as he braced for potential teasing.
Yeah, well, my mom suggested it. And you know what? It was actually pretty cool.
To Jake's surprise, Mike leaned in for a closer look.
Huh. It does look good, man. Your nails were kind of a disaster before. No offense.
Jake laughed, relieved.
None taken. I never really paid attention to them before.
Mike nodded thoughtfully.
You know, my girlfriend's always on me about taking better care of myself. Maybe I should give it a try too.
As they continued their lunch, the conversation drifted to other topics, but Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. He'd taken a risk, tried something new, and not only had he enjoyed it, but he'd even inspired someone else to consider it too. After school, instead of heading straight home, Jake found himself standing outside the music room. He could hear the faint sound of a violin being tuned from inside. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door. The music teacher, Mr. Reynolds, looked up from where he was helping a student with their violin positioning.
Jake, this is a surprise. What can I do for you?
Jake's fingers twitched nervously at his sides. I was wondering if I could try out the piano, if that's okay? Mr. Reynolds' eyebrows rose slightly, but he smiled.
Of course. The piano's open for anyone to use. Do you play?
Jake shook his head.
No, not really. But I thought, maybe I could learn?
Mr. Reynolds' smile widened.
That's a great attitude, Jake. The piano's all yours. Feel free to experiment, and if you need any help, just let me know.
As Jake sat down at the piano, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He placed his hands on the keys, admiring for a moment how his well-groomed nails looked against the white and black backdrop. Then, hesitantly, he began to play. The first few notes were awkward and disjointed, but as Jake continued to experiment, he found himself getting lost in the music. He may not have known any songs or proper techniques, but there was something freeing about creating sound, about the way the keys felt under his fingers. He didn't notice Mr. Reynolds approaching until the teacher spoke.
You've got a good touch, Jake. Your hands are well suited for piano playing. Have you ever considered taking lessons?
Jake looked up, startled out of his reverie.
Oh, not really. This is kind of spur of the moment.
Mr. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully.
Well, if you're interested, we offer beginner classes after school. You've got potential, and with those long fingers of yours, you could really excel.
As Jake left the music room that afternoon, his head was spinning with possibilities. In the span of just 2 days, he'd gotten his first manicure, received compliments from a girl he'd always been too shy to talk to, and discovered a potential new passion for music. Walking home, Jake found himself looking at the world with new eyes. He noticed things he'd never paid attention to before. The way the late afternoon sun painted the trees in golden hues, the rhythmic tapping of his shoes against the sidewalk, the way his newly groomed hands swung at his sides with each step. He realized that this experience had been about so much more than just getting his nails done. It had been about opening himself up to new experiences, about caring for himself in ways he'd never considered before. It had been about realizing that self-expression and self-care weren't just for girls or for anyone else. They were for everyone who wanted to feel good about themselves. As he approached his house, Jake made a decision. He was going to sign up for those piano lessons. He was going to continue exploring this new side of himself. And maybe, just maybe, he'd let his mom talk him into that pedicure after all. When he walked through the front door, Sarah looked up from where she was reading on the couch. "Hey, honey! How was your day?" Jake couldn't help the grin that spread across his face.
Mom,
he said, his voice filled with excitement.
you're not going to believe what happened today.
As Jake recounted his day to his mother, her face lit up with pride and joy. She listened intently as he described Alyssa's compliment, Mike's reaction, and his impromptu piano session. "Oh, Jake," Sarah said when he finished, her eyes shining. "I'm so proud of you, not just for trying the manicure, but for being open to all these new experiences. That takes real courage." Jake felt a warmth spread through his chest at his mother's words. "Thanks, Mom. And, thanks for pushing me to try it in the first place. I never would have done it on my own." Sarah stood up and pulled Jake into a hug. "Sometimes we all need a little push to step out of our comfort zones. I'm just glad it turned out so well for you." As they broke apart, Jake remembered something. "Oh, by the way, Mr. Reynolds mentioned they offer beginner piano classes after school. I was thinking, maybe I could sign up?" Sarah's face lit up. "Of course! That sounds wonderful, honey. We can look into it together tomorrow if you'd like." Jake nodded, then hesitated for a moment before adding, "And, maybe this weekend we could go back to the salon? I think I might want to try that pedicure after all." Sarah's laughter filled the room, warm and affectionate. "Now you're speaking my language! It's a date!" That night, as Jake lay in bed, he found himself reflecting on the whirlwind of the past 2 days. He looked at his hands, the nails still neatly manicured, and smiled to himself. Who would have thought that a simple suggestion from his mom could have led to all this? He thought about the piano, about the way the keys had felt under his fingers. He thought about Alyssa's smile when she complimented his nails, and about Mike's surprising openness to the idea. He thought about all the other new experiences that might be waiting for him, just beyond the boundaries of what he'd always considered normal, or for guys. As he drifted off to sleep, Jake felt a sense of excitement for what the future might hold. He'd taken a small step out of his comfort zone, and it had opened up a whole new world of possibilities. Who knew what other hidden talents or interests he might discover? One thing was for sure, He was never going to let preconceived notions of what was manly or normal hold him back again. After all, true strength came from being true to oneself, from having the courage to explore and grow. And it all started with a simple manicure.
Thanks for watching my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.